there are many startups that struggle to find even a single investor. And on the other hand, there are startups like Zepto where investors are always willing to get in.
Did you get a lot of rejection? Did anybody reject you?
I mean, it sounds difficult to believe, but we actually did get 3 term sheets within the first month of starting. We ended up deciding on a term sheet before the other 6 people that we were engaging with decided.
So what I learned from this is that for a good company, there is no funding winter. You will get your money, but are you a good company is the question. And how do you get your company to a position where you'll be regarded as a good company by investors?
And if you also run a startup like Zepto where multiple investors are willing to pitch in, then it is no problem for you to speak to multiple investors until you execute the term sheet. Because once the term sheet is executed, you should not be ideally speaking to other investors apart from this particular investor that you have signed the term sheet with. But why am I exactly advising this is something that you will learn from this video. So the first thing that you need to understand is that when a term sheet is executed, there is no transaction or transfer of share that has happened through this document. But what has happened is that this transaction is commenced because now due diligence will take place from the side of the investors, and also the information will be shared between both the parties. And this collectively will help both the parties to decide the actual terms of the definitive agreements through which the transaction is supposed to close. And because in this time period that exists between the execution of the term sheet and the execution of the definitive agreements, the investor is going to incur some costs and efforts. So in order to protect their interests, most term sheets would provide for an exclusivity clause, which provides that during the course of this transaction, the promoters or the founders or any associates of this investee startup company cannot be speaking to other investors to raise money. And while most people, including startup founders, think that term sheets are generally non-binding, so they can breach it without any consequence, but this understanding of the term sheet is incorrect, because there are cases where term sheets have been held to be binding, and even when they are not fully binding, at least some clauses of these term sheets are generally considered to be binding, which does include a confidentiality and even an exclusivity clause, which means that if you are breaching any of those clauses, then there can be legal consequences for the same.